So I wrote a book and it's out. It's called A Cult of One. And it took me 3 years to do this thing. I got my ACL surgery in February 2020, and I went asleep and I woke up like Cillian Murphy in what's it called? 30 Days Later, the zombie movie. And I woke up to a pandemic from an operation. It was insane. The operation I had on my knee had complications. I'd sheared a piece of bone off. It wasn't just an ACL issue. And so it meant that I was in a leg brace with very, very limited mobility for 3 months. So the first version, this was the second version of the book, was 80,000 words of some veered between being very academic and very boring, and then almost like stream of consciousness nonsense. And I submitted that, and I submitted it to Scribe because I was reading Dave Goggins' book, Can't Hurt Me, and listening to it at the same time. And I felt, that was done through Scribe Media. And I was like, oh, these people seem to know what they're doing. I really like Dave Goggins' book. I'll submit it to them. And they were very polite. They were like, this has some good ideas in it, and it seems to be intelligently written, but basically they said it's not fit for human consumption. That was that was nice of them. That was the second version of the book. The first version of the book, I hired a ghostwriter in 2019 to get it done, and he sort of did. We got through about 5 chapters of it, and he did like a fictionalized version of my life that included me jumping out of a helicopter in Afghanistan to train Navy SEALs in hand-to-hand combat. And I was like, I don't mind embellishments, but I've never been in a helicopter. I've flown over Afghanistan when coming back from Malaysia once, but you can't do that. And he's like, no, people will like it. I'm like, yeah, they'll like it. And then I'll be on some podcast somewhere opposite a Navy SEAL who'll be like, and what was the name of the captain when you arrived there? When you got battered. So he's a good guy, a good writer, like a really, really good writer. But I couldn't release that. So I was like, we had 25,000 words with him. Then I rewrote it. It was 80,000 words. I was talking to my mum about this the other day. It reads, my draft of 80,000 words reads like I was on painkillers. Oddly enough, I refused the painkillers they gave me after surgery, just because I wanted to save them. I was like, I will take the painkillers if I'm in a huge amount of pain, but if I'm not in a huge amount of pain daily, I'm just not going to take anything, because you get numb to this stuff. I think I took some things to reduce the swelling, and that was it. But they'd given me like, what's really strong pain? I think morphine, is it? Codeine, something like that. They'd given me like a liquid bottle of this stuff. Didn't touch it, never opened it. But I think even though I didn't take it, I think my body was producing something, because the stuff that I wrote was weird, man. It was like, reading it back, I was like, wow, I wish I didn't submit that, because it's really strange. So that was the second version of the book. The third version of the book was trimmed down to about 30,000 words. And again, Scribe were really, really nice about it. They're like, okay, we're getting closer to something we can release to the public. But what you need to do when you're writing a book, because I don't just want my pre-existing followers to read it, that 30,000 word version, that was like me on YouTube, but in a book format. And my pre-existing followers would have liked it. But I really wanted to try and open up to the general public. And they said, look, it's not going to work. So I had to go on a course and learn how to write. Which was a weird experience, because I've lived most of my adult life believing I could write, not just believing I could write, but believing I was a good writer. I don't know where I got that from. I don't know why I grandiosely believed that I was a good writer. I'd written articles and I'd written dissertations, and I did well enough at university, wrote dissertations. I wrote articles and people loved them. But when you write to the general public, especially whether it's fiction or whether you're writing this kind of thing where it's like partly offering people advice and partly telling them about your life, it's a weird balancing act. So I had to actually go on a course and relearn how to write this kind of a book. So the book itself, broadly speaking, every chapter is sort of 50-50-ish about my life, anecdotes from my life, to try and put like a narrative in there so that where there is a lesson, where there is something I want to convey to people, what Scribe did, it was actually Tucker. I spoke to Tucker, who owns Scribe, and he's a best-selling author himself. I didn't speak to him much. I spoke to him a few times. Was like, this is where we need to be. You can't just, to somebody who doesn't know you, you can't just presume to educate them, because it doesn't go over well. If somebody's already following on YouTube and they already take you that way, that's fine. But if they don't know you, you can't do that. So you share anecdotes, you share parts of your life that then bridge into, and this is what I learned from that. That was very, very hard for me. That was like pulling teeth. I don't instinctively like to share parts of my personal life, but I'm aware that that's what people want. That's just how it's done. Maybe this is like, I think it's partly just being British. We're just not very expositional about private life. I was raised in private school. Sometimes I was in boarding schools where privacy comes at a premium, so you highly value privacy. But then as we went through the writing process, even after I'd done the course, the lady who edited the book and was guiding the direction of the book as I was submitting it chapter by chapter, she kept on saying to me, everything is fine. We can clean like grammatical errors and bits where the narrative drifts off. We can clean all that up for you, but we can't add stuff that we don't know. You must share more. You have to reveal more. Why am I telling you this? Because the book came out a few days ago, and I think I'm in a little bit of what they call in some psychology circles a vulnerability hangover, where I'm absolutely dreading the fact it's people are buying it. There's a lot of people buying it, and I'm really dreading the fact that there's a lot of people who are now experiencing in a very intimate way parts of my life that I just never would have shared, like experiences and anecdotes that I just never would have shared with people. When I say intimately, I read books. I'm a book reader. Like, I don't know, according to my Kindle, I think I've gone through this year. We're in the 8th month of this year, the 9th month of this year, something like 16 books this year. I like to read. It calms me down. It helps me to sleep. If I'm traveling, I like to read. So I thought I thought I could write. Writing there are unique styles of writing for different genres that you have to study, you have to relearn. And also, just because you read, it doesn't mean you really understand the writing process. You understand the reading process, but you don't understand the writing process. If I invite you in to my subjective experience of what it was like when I was 18 years old and on a really bad acid trip and thought I was being chased by the god Pan through the woods at Bromborough back to my home in Bebington. That's and I tell you exactly what I was feeling, which I do in the book. I tell you exactly what I was experiencing, exactly, in this story. This is real. I thought I saw the god Pan. I needed help to come down off my acid trip because it was too strong. I met two punks outside of Bromborough train station and was like, oh, I'm having a bad trip. What do I do? There used to be a myth that if you take vitamin C, it would reduce the acid trip. I think it actually makes it worse. There was all of that. I tried to take refuge in a church at one point. It was crazy. Obviously, my family's going to read this. They didn't know. I had no idea that I was taking acid and running around Bromborough, Spittal and Bebington being chased by long dead gods and going fucking psychotic. All of this is quite intimate. Not when you're writing it, but when you read back what you wrote for the consumption of others, you're putting other people in the driving seat of a subjective experience from your life. So as though when you read somebody's subjective experience, it's a psychological hypnotic effect. You experience it as though you were that person. It generates empathy because not any kind of warm empathy necessarily. People could be like, my God, this guy's an absolute degenerate. What's he doing taking acid? But it forces empathy, because in order to understand the words that I've written, you have to imagine that you're there. You have to experience it as though you're an 18-year-old kid from the northwest of England. Like otherwise the story won't make sense. It will be bewildering and alienating. So yeah, that's weird for me. This is a weird, very, very strange experience for me. I'm glad I did it. I'm relieved that I finally finished the project, but I'm also experiencing, it's a weird somatic sensation. I sort of feel unanchored in relation to this project, because I'm like, on the one hand, I want it to do well. I want it to get into the hands of a lot of people, and I hope that people benefit from it. But on the other hand, there's a part of me that's like, I hope less people read it, so that there's less human beings out there who know subjectively what I was experiencing and what I was thinking at these different points in my life. So far, people have liked it. It made the marketing manager of the project. She said it made her cry, and I was like, oh, that's good. I'm glad I've inflicted human suffering on someone. That's very gratifying for me. So far, the feedback has been really, really good, but it's a strange experience for me. If you want to know more about my concept, the way I've conceptualized dealing with narcissistic abuse, you should get the book and give it a go. If you're interested in my life, my background, and how I came to the conclusions that I've come to, and sharing the material that I'm sharing with you here, and you want to know firsthand, subjectively, what experiences led me to that place, you should get the book. One of the major concepts in the book that was reversed from the previous editions is there isn't much of a focus on the mechanics of how narcissistic abuse plays out. I think it's there in one chapter. The reason for that was because we through the training process, they were telling me to make the book as concise as I possibly could. And so in order to be concise, I was like, what's important to help people overcome narcissistic abuse? Is it important that they know the 35 different flavors, levels, and permutations of narcissism, borderline psychopathy, and histrionic personality disorder? No. Do they need the ICD-10 and the DSM-5 reconstituted and cut up and refed to them? Not really. It's much more about who you are as a person, your structure as a person, your experiences as a person, that would lead you to be vulnerable to a narcissistically abusive relationship, and the effects of a narcissistically abusive relationship, which are fundamentally a kind of codependency. It's a kind of codependency that I'm calling echo codependency. We've forgotten echo. We remember Narcissus. So we remember that part of Ovid's tale, which is Narcissus, which is the man, which is the yang, which is the abuser, which is the beautiful, handsome, much desired young Greek hunter who falls in love with his own image because he can't find anybody as beautiful as he is, which ultimately leads to his curse and to his demise. But we forget who loved him, which was Echo. Echo is the nymph from whom we get the word echo. She is cursed by the queen of the goddesses because she's upset the queen of the goddesses. She can never speak. She has no voice of her own. She can only repeat what other have given her. The narcissist is toxically yang, and he is in tarot symbology, he would be represented by the wand. And the echo, the codependent, is the response to that. She is toxically yin, and she would be represented by cups in the tarot. She is empty. She has no self. She has no substance. Narcissistic abuse carves out the self. People who are raised in highly narcissistic environments, they carve out their own self. The book then is a call to people who've experienced this kind of narcissistic abuse, either in childhood, adulthood, or both, to come back to themselves, to not be empty, to re-find a voice and to re-find a will and intention, a semangat, which is a word you'll learn if you read the book from Malaysia, so that they can live and thrive as a fully formed human being and not just be a ghost who is haunting their own lives. Well, that book is out now, and if you get it, I hope you get something from it. As ever, thank you very much for your time and for your attention, and I look forward to speaking to you again soon. Cheers. Okay, folks, the new course, Unplug from the Matrix of Narcissistic Abuse, is out now, and if you're interested in finding out more about that, please click the link below.